Hey, everyone. Welcome to Unique Ways with Thomas Gerard, an audio podcast. Got a really great guest on today, and I'll describe her. She's an Internet of Things author, a consultant, a public speaker, and an entrepreneur with a background in industrial and interaction design. She wrote Smarter Homes: How Technology Will Change Your Home, and her projects are also part of the permanent collection at the Museum of Modern Art in New York City. Please join me in welcoming Alexandra Deschamps-Sonsino. Welcome.
Thank you.
Are you ready for 20 questions?
Let's do it.
Great. Question one, tell me a little bit more about yourself. What do you do?
So I'm currently the design director at TPX Impact. This is a design consultancy based in London, but we've got offices all over the UK. And as you said, I've had a great many lives, but these days that's what I do. And I help manage a team of 93 designers, digital designers mostly.
Great. That's cool. Okay. So question two, what's a key piece of knowledge that makes you different?
I was thinking about that, and I think I don't think it's one thing, but it's certainly a set of experiences. So I experienced failure very quickly, and this is through when I was a student doing interaction design. I studied at an institute that was being dissolved in the middle of our degree. And so we ended up being the last cohort of students who studied at the Interaction Design Institute Ivrea, which was in northern Italy. And I think that was a formative lesson in the fact that things stop and things end. I ended up running my own studio, which I had to close after 3 years. And that was also, another form of ending. And I think those early endings in my career and early failures were really critical and really make me, I think, very prepared for all sorts of things at work.
Great. And just a note for the audience, you're from Canada, right?
Yes, sort of.
So if you guys are interested in other Canadian episodes, check out the episode with Marianne Banshees. She's a really great Canadian artist. So question three, why this of all things? Why do you do what you do?
I think it's because I'm always trying to do something hard. I'm trying to figure out how to make something hard easier. So once I get in the groove and I kind of figure something out, I'm bored. And so I have had my own studio, I've had my own product, I've written books, I've worked as a consultant, and now, I've been in-house and, helping manage a team of 90 plus people, which I'd never done before. And I am always running after the next hard thing to do. I think that's what motivates me.
Nice. So some people struggle with number four, but the question is, what does your future look like?
So I don't really focus on the immediate future. I think it's laughable to kind of try to overdo the next year, but I'm much more interested in the 10-year plan.
Mm.
And my mentor, Tom Klinkostine, who's an artist and a professor in New York City, sat me down when I was younger and said, write what you want to do with your life to the point of embarrassing yourself. And so I went to the MoMA. I sat in their cafe when it was a little bit less busy than it is now. And I wrote down everything I wanted to do. And at that time, I was about 26, 27. And that really helped me put some goals in place and some things in place. So I wrote books because of the exercise I did at 27, thinking what I wanted to do with my life. And so my future now is full of the goals that I still have, that I still wrote back then. Even if I revisit this exercise, some of those goals fall by the wayside, but I've always got something in mind for the future. So I have a very clear idea of what I want to do by the age of 50, which is in 6 years for me. And so, yeah, I'll talk about that later, I think, in some of the other questions.
Great. And just real quick here, if you guys are interested in the 10-year plan, check out our early supporter, Debbie Millman's episode. She was a great one. Um, Question five, we say is unique to this show. The question is, let's talk about location. How does the notion of place play into what you do?
So the reason why I hesitated when answering your question about me being Canadian is I was born in Montreal, but I grew up between Paris and the Middle East as a child.
Mm,
I returned to Canada and to Quebec specifically to finish high school
mm,
and do my first degree. And then I moved to Italy, and then I moved to Amsterdam, and I've been in London now for 17 years.
mm,
And so place is absolutely critical to my life because it was such a changing dimension when I was a child.
mm,
But as an adult, I have been able to stay in the same place and take a lot of pleasure from staying in the same place
mm,
for such a long period of time. I now have lived in London longer than anywhere else in my life,
mm,
which is, real treasure for me to have found that. And I could only have done that by living in London, which is one of the most cosmopolitan cities in the world.
mm,
So the idea of place really, yeah, it is also a red thread through some of my work. So the Goodnight Lamp, which was a product that I um, commercialized very briefly some years ago, is all about place. It's a family of lamps. You have a big lamp and little lamps. You give the little lamps away to anybody around the world. And when you turn the big lamp on, the little ones turn on.
mm,
And so that's all about place. That's all about creating a non-verbal, very low-tech connection to someone else in the world.
mm. Nice. Six, if you had to start from the beginning, what advice would you give your former younger self?
I think I would say, or I would gently suggest to slow down. I'm now almost 20 years into my career, and I look at the things that I've done, and I can't even remember some of them because I was just go, go, go for so many years. And I'm only finding real pleasure in slowing down and really being more considered now that my energy levels are changing because I'm getting older.
Mm,
And so I would just say, like, savor it and slow down a little
mm,
because it's not gonna go away. The time isn't gonna go away. You're gonna have the time.
mm.
And so yeah, just chill.
Nice. And what's a day in your life like?
Well, these days I go into an office 4 days a week. And so if I am lucky enough to have a great night of sleep, I will wake up with my alarm having snoozed for an hour, depending on how bad my sleep is. I'll go into the office, which is in next to Whitechapel Gallery in London. So that's in East London, not too far away from Tower Bridge, for those of you who have been to London. I will go and work in kind of in person with part of my team, but most of my team is remote. But I like going somewhere. I like going into an office, saying hi to the people who are there, even if I might spend most of my day on work calls. I'll finish by 6, and then I might catch up with a friend or do some of the other activities that I have. And yeah, I'll talk about that in a bit, but I will generally be in bed by 11, and I will not have watched any Netflix.
Number eight, lifelong learning is a popular topic. How do you stay up to date?
I'm one of those people who really are still on Twitter, which is really laughable, but I find it to still be a source of absolutely bonkers lateral knowledge. My other source of inspiration are a handful of newsletters I subscribe to, one of them being the Vittles food newsletter in London, which is amazing, and which is more about food culture and cultures than it is about food. And if I'm really wanting something completely left field to learn about or dig into, thingsmagazine.net has been running for over 10, 20 years, I think, and is just a fantastic link dump. I took inspiration from them for my own blog some years ago, and yeah, they're great.
Great. And nine, tools. Do you use digital and analog tools?
Yeah, absolutely. I have had a notebook of some form throughout my career. I think that's a really industrial design thing. You're always kind of in the beginning, just sketching things, but then you turn to note taking and then you turn to sort of active note taking as a way of processing. And so I've always had a good notebook, a good pen, usually something by Muji. My good notebooks these days come from Present and Correct, which is a very lovely stationery shop in London. I will do almost the bare minimum of digital tools these days because of my work and because my work is really a management role. So I'm on Slack. I have to open other people's Miro, but usually I try to avoid making my own. I will stare at spreadsheets all day long, and I will do a ton of, yeah, Slack messages and a ton of conversations. But I will always have a notebook.
Great. And halfway number 10, how do you deal with life work or work-life balance?
I I think I'm a little bit particular in that way, which is because I don't have a family. I kind of have the luxury of curating my evenings. What do they call it? The 5 to 9, except for me, it's not 5 to 9. It's, 6 to 11. And so I always think of my day in terms of a third of it will be sleeping, a third of it will be at work, and then a third of it is up to me to figure out what to do with. And so I always look at that as sort of a curatorial opportunity. And for me, that's meant taking on more and more roles, such as trustee roles. So I'm a trustee for two charities, the Restart Project and Mediale. I'm also on the board of advisors of something called the Working Class Creatives Database. And I will have my meetings in the evenings, basically.
Mm,
And so I'm always trying to make my evening time interesting and productive in a totally different way.
mm.
And that is a form of balancing. It's a balancing act of some kind, I think.
Great. And 11, if you weren't doing what you do now, what might you be doing?
I have always had this sort of scenario in my mind because the scenario in my mind is the catastrophic scenario of there's no more internet, you have to do something else. My mind always goes to a hair salon. I don't know why. I've never trained to cut hair, but I think that would be the funnest thing I could do.
What would you not like to do with your career?
Do anything repetitive. I really struggle with anything repetitive. I even struggle with things like knitting. I can sew, I can do like, I can get involved in like learning how to make a garment, but don't ask me to knit. So anything at work that's repetitive really drives me nuts.
And how about a favorite word, quote, or sentence?
So this one, what did I pull out? So really for me, this is something I say to people at work all the time, which is we don't work in a hospital. It helps people gain some form of sort of separation between the thing that's just happened that feels really urgent and the fact that actually we're not saving lives.
Mm.
That's my favorite expression.
And how about a least favorite word, quote, or sentence?
When someone tells me we don't have a choice,
Mm.
that really ticks me off because you've always got a choice.
15, you're choosing one word to describe yourself. What word do you choose?
Curious.
What keeps you up at night?
This is a funny question for me because I suffer from perimenopause. And so lots of things keep me up at night.
Mm.
But if I was being philosophical about it, I would say climate change.
Mm. How about a dream you're chasing?
I would love to start a design school that really addresses the climate emergency. So really rethinks entirely the design curriculum.
Mm. What inspires you?
I am inspired by people who are younger than me and my family, my nieces, my nephew. Um, Anybody younger than me is bringing me back to what I used to be like and bringing me back to that energy. And I really love that.
Great. And last couple here. Any advice you'd like to share?
I actually picked out a quote, which is kind of about courage, I guess, but it's from a really wonderful book written in the 70s, I think, called The Pursuit of Loneliness by Philip Slater. And a fabulous quote, which is the meek may be blessed, but they don't write memoirs. And I think have courage, do something that's outside of your comfort zone. And even if it doesn't work out, you're absolutely going to learn and you're absolutely going to stretch yourself in interesting ways.
Great. And finally, number 20, how can our listeners keep tabs on you and what's our call to action?
I guess I'm always blogging. I've been blogging since 2005. So you're welcome to follow my blog. It's still, I think it has RSS. So designswarm.com/blog. I am on Instagram at Alex Difficult Surname. And call to action is, I don't know, just try to take less airplanes.
Hmm. Great. Well, awesome. Thank you so much for joining today. Really great to connect with London, and you have a very impressive CV, so it's a pleasure to have you on today. Thanks.
Thank you.